This is all wrong. I shouldn't be up here. I should be back in school on the other side of the ocean. Yet you all come to us young people for hope. How dare you!
Boring. Boring. Boring.
Okay, you got it. Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because you're in no position to dictate that.
Remember what you're doing.
You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel.
I call again for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza, the return of the sausages, the hostages.
Things one and all to unprecedented TV here in 2026. Thanks very much for joining me. I'm Lembit Öpik, Chief Executive Officer and one of the presenters. We hope to have a fantastic year, and we're going to have a very interesting interview today with somebody who could be the next governor of California, a country which, a county, no more than that, a state which is almost the same population as the whole of the United Kingdom. Got that right in the end. We'll come to in a minute. Don't forget to subscribe and like. If you do, you'll find us at Unprecedented TV. The more of you subscribe, and it's free, the more we can do. That's my only request. That'd be a fantastic New Year's resolution. Please subscribe to Unprecedented TV. Now let's set the scene. American politics has always interested me, and it should interest you because it influences what happens in the United Kingdom. We used to have a special relationship, in my opinion. That's been ruined by Keir Starmer and his incompetent cabinet. That's just my opinion. You can have another one if you want. But undoubtedly, when we finally get a good government again, that special relationship will be important. Back to California. It's a very wealthy part of the United States. It's got tens of millions of residents. It's got good weather, and it's got some great politicians, not least Arnie Schwarzenegger, who's the governor there as well. A great actor and a pretty good politician. But who else could do the job? We're going to be speaking today to somebody who'd like to do that job. He's an entrepreneur, a journalist, and an all-round good person. Please welcome Zoltqn Istvan. Zoltan, good to see you here on Unprecedented TV. How have you been?
I've been great. Thanks so much for having me on.
Well, that's great, and thank you. Let me just start with your name. Lembit Öpik isn't conventionally British. Zoltqn Istvan sounds like a film star name, a bit like Schwarzenegger. Where's it from?
Well, the name is from Hungary. Believe it or not, it's the most common Hungarian name in Hungary. But of course, in the United States or other places, it's quite esoteric. But you know, it is what it is. My parents gave it to me. I was born in the United States, though, so all your listeners know.
I was born in the United Kingdom, but my name doesn't suggest it. By an amazing coincidence, though, my name is an almost exact anagram of the phrase, I like to be MP. Who knew? And I was one for a while. But the great thing is there's precedent. Arnie Schwarzenegger, he did very well in American politics. Let's start then with your background. Incidentally, I'm a great fan of Viktor Orban. I'm not sure if you are, but I think he's one of the few pretty intelligent politicians we actually have left at high level in Europe. That's for another time. How is it that you found yourself in the political world? You've been a very successful entrepreneur. Why isn't that enough?
Well, California is undergoing some big changes. I was born there in 1973, so I'm 52 now. And it's safe to say the last 25 years, the state has been in to some extent decline. In the last 10 years, pretty close to a free fall. Crime seems ubiquitous. Taxes are outrageous. You know, I have been an entrepreneur in real estate development. It's almost impossible to build in California because there's so many regulations. So, I mean, we need someone to step in at the top leadership role and really to reverse the Golden State's fortunes. And I'm hoping to do that. You know, my background beyond the real estate endeavors is really in journalism. I started my career at National Geographic. I've also written quite a lot for the New York Times. Just finished, actually, for England, my graduate degree in philosophy at the University of Oxford about 2 years ago. So that was fun, too. But really, I'm running for office because my businesses have not been able to succeed in the California environment that we have now. And we need someone to step up and restore sanity in this state. We
have something in common. We've both studied the thought of thought. I did philosophy at Bristol University. And I started off in economics, realized economics was a pseudoscience rather than a proper one, and then went to something which was authentic. The philosophy degree I've got put me in pretty good stead. I'm going to put you on the spot now. Favorite philosopher? Do you have one?
Oh, you get me in trouble, but Friedrich Nietzsche is probably my favorite, and I've studied quite a lot of his work.
Interesting you say that, because when I was at university, some of the philosophers there sneered at Nietzsche. They said he wasn't a proper philosopher. I don't think they understood him. When he wrote a book called Ecce Homo, the first chapter, he was poking fun. The first chapter is entitled Why I Am So Wise. The second chapter, Why I Am So Clever. Third chapter, Why I Write Such Excellent Books. It was ironic, and people didn't realize that. I think he's a very impressive philosopher. I'd add David Hume there as well. He's a great philosopher as well. But anyway, let's not indulge ourselves too much. Let's go back into the political world. You're a Democrat. Why?
Well, to be honest, I've also run as a Republican before. I'm not a party person. I'm a centrist when it comes down to politics, largely speaking. I just try to do reasonable things, and I want to run business, make money, pass down some inheritance to my kids. It's pretty simple, actually. But what's happened is in this world, at least in California, is that it's become impossible to do business, impossible to even go outside sort of the progressive woke culture. And that doesn't sound like a Democrat speaking, but again, I'm coming from a centrist point of view. I would like to run as somebody who upholds liberal values, but still can have be fiscally conservative to some extent, to the point that business makes sense. And then let's just be a little bit more honest. To run as anything other than a Democrat in California means you're definitely going to lose. So if you really are serious about winning, you better run as a Democrat.
Well, what about Arnie? Arnie seemed to do pretty well there.
Well, his celebrity status was a kind of a single to none. I mean, he really was a special kind of thing out there. We don't have that in the race right now. Nobody with that kind of celebrity power, whether it's Republicans or the Democrats. Kamala would have been the closest thing, and she chose not to run. In fact, as I understand it, at least this is a hearsay, she chose not to run because California was in such dire straits that she might have messed up whatever legacy she has. Because no matter who takes over California, you're being left with a huge amount of problems and issues that are unlikely to go away anytime soon, just because the mess is so large. So it takes some bravado at this point, I think, to try to imagine being governor and changing it around. But I do believe I can do it, and we'll see how we can do.
We'll come to Kamala in a minute. Now you've mentioned her, but our researchers indicate that they reckon you do have a star quality. You're regarded as a charismatic candidate. That may sound complimentary, but it also seems to be quite factual. That means that you could pull it off as a Republican if you wanted to, but you've chosen to be a Democrat.
Honestly, look, I'm not sure even Arnold Schwarzenegger, going back to 10, 20 years, could pull it off as a Republican anymore. The state, since he was there, has really started to turn further and further left. I'm not happy about that. I would rather have a centric state, but it just seems like every single day we go further and further. And I think Trump has made California even further left because he scared so many of the liberals out here. So I just think from a sense school point of view, if you want to be competitive, you gotta run as a Democrat right now. And let me just say, I've always had very strong libertarian policies, and those tend to merge very well with a lot of the liberal ideas, women's rights, do with your body whatever you want. So honestly, I fit better on the liberal side than I do anywhere else. That said, as a business person, I certainly come in with fiscally conservative views.
Liberal means something different in American politics to British politics, I'd say. I actually came into politics because I'm a libertarian. I got sick and tired of being told what to do. And, that must have been almost 40 years ago, around 40 years ago, in fact. And now I feel that Britain's got less freedom than it's ever had. Let's have a quick chat about Arnie. What did you make of him as governor, just out of interest?
Yeah, well, he did fantastic. And honestly, I think that's sometimes what you need in the system. You have 10, 20 years of a certain type of party, these things stagnate. And it's nice to have somebody come up and shake the system up. It doesn't mean that the whole world's changing. It just means that you can, offset the pendulum. And let's be honest, we've had a pendulum. California went completely woke, went completely progressive. We weren't even, criminalizing petty theft anymore. So it was like you were having brazen robberies and just people stealing things. You could see it in San Francisco. You just go downtown and you could see like gangs roaming around, just going to, you know, Walmart or whatever, the Rite Aids, and taking stuff by the dozens in their hand and just walking out. Nobody was arresting them. So it's good to have the pendulum swing the other way, I think, at times. And honestly, just I don't think the liberals would like me saying that, but the truth is that a place and a country and people do better when things go back and forth and they right themselves over time.
I'd have expected the Terminator to fix a lot of things like that. He wouldn't tolerate petty theft. One of my all-time favorite films is Terminator 2, but I'm sure you've heard that before. We'll come to Kamala shortly, since we are talking about Arnie and we're talking about wokeism. One of my concerns is, in my opinion, there is no climate emergency. I don't think there is. Arnie seemed to think there was, but he covered the whole state with, which I wrongly called county earlier on. That's my Britishness. This whole state with solar panels. I'm told that that's not exactly been a roaring success.
So look, it hasn't been a roaring success, but I believe it or not, I wish I had solar panels in my house right now, because the thing is, you can't even count on the electric companies anymore to provide power at any kind of reasonable cost. So let me just give you an idea. You know, we were paying like $300-400 at the peak month, maybe February, where I live in the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area. I think last year we paid $12.37. So that's 3 times the amount of what we paid just 8 or 9 years ago. So it's not, for me, it's not even about climate change. It's like, how can I save the most amount of money using whatever technology it is? But I don't know if I can trust, because yes, PG&E might be this company that is on the market and it's pretending to be private, but they're all in the hands of the government. So this doesn't really make sense at all either. So even if you are approaching solar panels as something good, whatever it is to save money on the heating bills, and I say this as someone who was just out campaigning literally across the state during a cold spell, and everybody knows exactly how hard they're getting hit on their heating bills. It's one of those things that's become completely outrageous in California. Your heating bill has become quite more significant than your food bill, which is crazy.
I got solar panels. I absolutely recommend that nobody in Britain has solar panels. My team wanted to make a comparison. I said, think of one reason you'd move to California. They said the beaches. Which beach? Is that a beach you know?
I don't know, but they look just like a California beach.
Yeah, well, they said that's the way it's in California, and this is the way it is in Britain. They said we've got to move. They said we've got to move, and with modern technology, as we're proving with this interview, we could interview you from anywhere. Britain is trapped, if you're watching this live, in a cold snap at the moment, even though there were some very foolish climate people who said that our children wouldn't know what snow is. I think they do know what snow is. Let's talk about Kamala Harris. You mentioned her, and I heard that she was thinking about standing, but she hasn't done that now. She hasn't got a great reputation. There's a lot of chat. I'm not very keen on gossip. This is a recurring theme. Kamala Harris emotional video, drunk or distraught. I don't really care. Winston Churchill was famous for drinking heavily through the whole of World War II. But I have to say, I didn't think Kamala Harris was very, very plausible. I think that she was a very weak presidential candidate.
Well, I think what's happened is the Democrats have made mistake after mistake after mistake, and they're probably going to make a mistake, in my opinion, by putting up Gavin Newsom. And I'm not against Gavin Newsom. I'm certainly not against Kamala either. But I would like somebody who has the real record of making their state better. I mean, for example, Gavin Newsom, our current governor, took over a huge surplus in California. And what's he going to end his 8 years with? Well, a deficit for sure. And we have a giant deficit now already to get out of. And this is the kind of governing that we think is not only wrong, but shouldn't be promoted. And somehow, you know, I mean, I think for either, you know, maybe race reasons or whatever reasons, you know, Kamala was the right pick for the VP with Biden. But I'm not going to say that she's the right pick for the president at all. I actually didn't think that whatsoever. She shouldn't have been the nominee. There should have been a nomination process. The Democrats blew it, and I think everybody across the country knew it, and that's why Trump won in what I would say is almost a landslide. People were upset with the entire system. They were also upset that Biden was nowhere near as confident as the media was pretending. And this is the whole thing with the Democrats. In fact, with my campaign as well, we're trying to run an honest campaign. Look, what you see is what you get. It's not, maybe it's not as flashy as other people, but you're getting honesty, you're getting rationality. We have ideas on how to turn around the state, not ideas of just making you feel better because you see something flashing in social media. So this is how the Democrats have to come back if they want to come back at all.
A word about Joe Biden. You've chosen to stand as a Democrat, and I get that, understand it. There would have been a time in the past where I'd have stood as a Democrat if I'd been in American politics. But you still have to overcome the legacy of Joe Biden. And here's one example of how he screwed up.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put him. America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put him.
Now, you might say it's a bit unfair to mock him, but he was the leader of the free world. Are you going to be affected by the legacy of a man who's clearly past his best, let's say, as president?
Not whatsoever. I think there's an entire new set of politicians making their way. You've seen Mamdani take over New York. I'm not a big fan of democratic socialism, but I am a fan of new people coming up and somehow rising up and leading their states or countries or cities, whatever it's going to be. And I think we need younger people in office as well. I mean, I think it's a little crazy to me. We have a bunch of 70 or 80-year-olds running around that, you know, their minds just aren't as sharp. I mean, I can just tell you just from all the studies, you're not that sharp at that age. So maybe it's something where we should be looking at younger people. And I think that's already something that's starting to happen. And I'm glad to be a beneficiary of that.
Well, I'm 60, you're 52, so I'll consider that patronizing.
No, I think 60 is something very different than 78 or 82 or whatever Trump and Biden were. I mean, that's a whole nother, those 10 years make a big difference.
People ask me if I want to go back into Parliament. I do have an opportunity to do it. I'd rather run unprecedented TV, to be honest with you. I just really, really enjoy it. Let's look at some of the issues which are common, if you like, to the United States and the United Kingdom. And one of them is the issue of migration. And based on the geographical location of California, you're fairly heavily affected by this. There's been a lot of debate about whether ICE, I think it's called, ICE comes in and does a lot of intervention. And that's caused, that it seems to me to have caused quite a lot of stress in your neighborhood, your part of the world. Where do you stand on the forcible extraction of people who maybe they're illegally but have been there for a long time?
Yeah, I think when it comes, this is kind of where my libertarianism comes down a little bit more. I think if you've been here a while and you're an illegal alien, we shouldn't be dragging you out of the streets. It's quite different if we absolutely positively know that you have a criminal record, especially a violent one. That's a very different take. I also think ICE shouldn't be wearing masks, and nor should people be wearing masks. If you can't decide, if you can't be honest about what's going on just by how you look, then there's a problem. But I'm not into dragging people out and putting them, back to their countries anymore. What I'm definitely not for, though, is I don't think we should be spending an enormous amount of money on illegal aliens' health care when there are so many Californians, literally like 15, 20%, living at or below the poverty line. I'd much rather spend the money directly on Californians and on U.S. citizens to make up for whatever means that they don't have. And so I think it's kind of gone out of control. The Democrats, again, have gone out of the control. And I want to just say also, I do think it kind of backfired. This idea that the Democrats would let in a ton of people from other countries and that those people would vote for them. This didn't actually work in the last presidential election. I think you were letting in a lot of very sort of aggressive males from different countries. Well, they're probably going to vote for the aggressive male that was running for office, and that was President Trump. And I think that happened. So I think Democrats have to rethink this whole immigration thing a little as well on a philosophical level. Yeah,
we got the similar problem, and it's an endless cycle of claim and counterclaim. The English channel's not very big, and very impressed with my team there. That is actually the English channel. You can get the whole thing in one picture, 20 miles, 36 kilometers. And we're not able to defend that. And you get up to 1,000 people coming across in small boats on that. And that's created rage and a huge problem for the Conservatives and also the Labour Party. Explicitly then, if you were the governor, what would you do about migration, and what would you do about Donald Trump's migration policy and ICE in particular? I know that there's only a limit to what you can do, because Donald Trump can always evoke the National Guard and say there's a crisis and so on. But what would you do about it?
Well, the first thing I would do is I would reach an olive branch out to President Trump. I think it's absolutely crazy. I know Gavin Newsom's trying to run for president and he wants to be a fighter. But I mean, honestly, I want someone who governs. So I think the first thing to do is reach out to Trump and say, listen, how can we make it so we don't have all this chaos? This is what our mayor of San Francisco did. You know, Trump was going to send the National Guard there, and the mayor reached out and said, hey, you don't need to do that. What can I do so I'm doing your work for you? And all of a sudden, San Francisco, in a matter of 6 months, has been cleaned up quite a bit. And I've seen it. I live there. I'm pretty amazed myself. The point, though, is that I think you can get a lot more done by compromising and by olive branch, by reaching out for peace and working together with the federal administration rather than just yelling at Trump and getting people really excited behind you in these demonstrations and whatnot. The demonstrations aren't feeding people. They're not giving people better jobs. They're not putting money in their pockets. So I'm all about governing and making people's lives better. I feel like the current governor of California is really already trying to run for president, and he wants to run on this anti-Trump ticket. It's working. I get it. The media loves it, and people seem to love it. But people aren't actually doing better. They're not actually wealthier. They're not actually living better lives, and that's what I'm concerned with.
Yeah, I've had to say, I think migration and the whole migration issue could actually define the next the outcome of the next general election in the United Kingdom, because Labour has gone.
And let me just kind of tell you my 2 cents to it. A huge part of my gubernatorial campaign is based on AI and automation. We know that AI is coming. It's going to be taking jobs. Robots are literally going to be in people's houses here by next year. Some already have them, doing mundane tasks, cooking, chores, laundry, things like that. There's a lot less reason over the next 2 to 5 years to have immigrants come in and do menial jobs, because menial jobs are going to be taken over by humanoid robots that can do them a lot more cheaply, without suing the owners, without ever calling in sick and things like that. So there's a real reason, like the HB1 visa thing with Trump. You know, he said, oh, we're just changing the visa program. I think what's really happening is people starting to realize we don't need immigration like we once did. In fact, we may need zero immigration at some point here in the next 10 years, because we have automation and AI that does everything for us that immigrants once did. And this is huge in terms of changing budgets, healthcare, growth of a country, the population, things like that. So let me just put that out there so your listeners know. I'm not huge on being pro-immigration anymore, because I do believe robots are going to be able to do all the tasks that immigrants once did.
That's a big statement. I saw something about you claiming that there'll be robots for every household. Yeah, there it is. Yeah. Do you literally mean that?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. So listen, there are already thousands of households in California that have robots. Some are starting to finally work autonomously. They've been done through avatars, but they're already loading dishes. They're already starting to do basic cooking. They're already starting to do basic laundry. And there are 10 or 20 different already $100 million, some $1 billion companies out there that are working on creating robots that are going to be able to do anything and everything that you can within 12 to 18 months. And once those hit the production line at about $30 to $40 to $50,000, every single CEO or company owner, entrepreneur is going to want one. Yeah, I'm going to want one for my real estate business. Maybe many of them, maybe 20 of them. Why not hire them to build houses instead of hiring people who call in sick or sometimes show up drunk or sue me because the tool drops on them of some sort? So there's a huge incentive to bring robots into our everyday lives. And I think it's going to come a lot more quickly than people realize. And one of the reasons it's going to come is because it's going to be far larger than the automobile industry. We're talking about 1, 2, 3, maybe 5 robots for every single person at some point in the future, just because you can, because they're going to come down just like televisions to be so cheap. You know, we always thought, oh, you have one TV in the house. I'm in a 4-bedroom house. We have 4 TVs. You know, I mean, that's how I think robots are going to be at some point here in the 10, 20-year future.
Is there a danger then that you'll make the Californian human race unemployed?
Yes, absolutely. And of course, that's why the biggest premise that I have in my gubernatorial campaign is we support a universal basic income for everyone that loses their job, and eventually for any adult that is living in California as a bona fide citizen.
That's pretty expensive. How do you pay for that if the robots are doing all the jobs?
Well, at some point, so first off, you can already see this. Robots are making the economy just grow bonkers. I mean, you've seen how big some of these companies have grown. I mean, what is Microsoft now have a GDP or close to Spain or something like that? Or, I mean, it's gone outrageous. Some of these giant companies like Google are quite a bit bigger than quite a few European countries.
Yeah.
The point, though, is that this is going to continue because they are getting better at replacing jobs and creating more opportunity, more production. These things can work 24 hours a day, whereas you and I can put in 8 to 10 hours at best. And maybe 12.
Speak for yourself. I'm 16 hours a day, my friend.
Okay, well, you're in 16. Okay, you're a superhuman. But I think a lot of people don't want to go beyond the 9 to 5, and these robots never stop working. The point is that when you take all that together and you expound it up, upward, it's crazy the amount of production that we could have in terms of how far the economy grows. And if that happens, there's going to be plenty enough money to pool from those companies, either through investments or either through, maybe it's taxing, or maybe California takes a stake in some of these companies. We pay dividends that way. That's one way. The other way, though, is my way. Is America owns about 40% of its western United States is totally empty land. I would love to lease out a lot of that federal land to whoever wants it, and to help pay a universal basic income. There's actually enough money. It's about $200 trillion right now worth of federal land the United States have, and $200 trillion would be probably enough for about $1,700 for every single person, and this is even children, in the United States. Now, you probably wouldn't be able to lease all of them out. You wouldn't want to lease out national parks, things like that. But you certainly could monetize a large portion of the American real estate that's unused out there right now. And if you did so, that would be a great way to pay for a universal basic income as well.
I have to say, you are radical, and it's quite inspiring to hear it. I also need to declare an interest. When I set up Unprecedented TV, I made a decision from the outset to rely heavily on AI. And I would say we'd have twice the number of staff if we didn't depend on it. The difference is I didn't replace employees with AI because I started with the AI. And as a result, I've created jobs, and I've actually probably afforded to set up an entire TV station if every job had to be done by a human. So I get that. I think I'm more concerned about whether AI will replace jobs which are currently being done by humans. But you know what? I'll put my cards on the table here. You can't stand in the way of progress. It's totally futile, because if America doesn't do it, then China will.
Yeah, and let me just say, regarding your TV show and TV company, it's just like, my guess is in 5 years' time, you won't even be there behind the screen. You'll be on the beach in the Bahamas, but it'll be you presenting, and your employees as well. They'll be on the Bahamas as well. This is the amazing thing about all this creativity with AI, and just how efficient it's going to be. And of course, it'll be 24 hours a day news network. So that's the magic of AI. And I was telling somebody in an interview earlier, what's scary is that the AI that's going to represent us, our avatars, are actually going to be better communicators than you and I could be. I mean, imagine if we had an AI avatar of Biden. He would have never made those verbal blunders. He might still be president. So this is the kind of thing that I'm talking about, truly radical change. Now, I'm not saying it's good or bad. What I'm saying is that I think people often underestimate how powerful this transformation could be, and how much time it might actually save and money it might actually make.
Stay with us there. There is, of course, the nagging doubt, the suspicion that viewers may now have that you and I are AI. It's possible, I suppose. You're watching a very real Zoltqn Istvan and a very real Lembit Öpik here. Somebody else who's very real is Claire Dyer with Dire Consequences. She has been absolutely storming ahead with her work and her program, where she takes local issues and finds the national significance. Watch this. That is Claire Die Consequences, usually on a Tuesday morning, a Thursday afternoon, if you're watching according to Greenwich Mean Time, GMT, or UTC, if you don't like the colonialism of that. But back to my guest today. That's Zoltqn Istvan, the man who would be governor of California. Fascinating to hear what you say about robots. And as I say, I'm heavily dependent on AI myself, not as far as going to the point of believing that I'm having a personal relationship with ChatGPT. I know people who do, and if it works for them, that's fine. But I regard AI as a tremendously useful tool more than anything else. Just want to touch on transhumanism, which I know that you're interested in. What is transhumanism, and what are the implications?
Well, sure. Transhumanism is a social movement of many millions of people around the world now that want to use radical science and technology to upgrade the human being and upgrade the human body and upgrade the human experience. It can be anything from kind of exoskeleton suits that might allow a senior citizen to climb Mount Everest. It can be brain implants for somebody who's in a wheelchair and can't walk but wants to walk, and maybe it'll help them. It can be even something as simple as electric cars, which, of course, if you go to San Francisco, at nighttime, you almost see no cars anymore except the Waymos. So this is what transhumanism is. It's using radical automation and kind of overtaking the human experience and improving it.
But is there a danger that with using AI in employment and promoting transhumanism, is danger the right word? Is there a possibility that you're going to erase humanity as we know it?
This is what my graduate work at Oxford was on. Yes, of course. There's a huge danger. I would say the danger is 50-50. So let me tell you a really interesting thing that happened to me about 4 months ago. I was at Max Novastern's house. He's a co-founder of one of the cryptocurrencies of the ChatGPT founder, and Sam Altman. And we were at his mansion with about 80 other experts from artificial intelligence. I was there just kind of schmoozing with people, drinking wine and listening. It was a bit of a symposium. And every single person there believed that within 18 to 36 months, we would create a super intelligence. And that super intelligence, we kind of said, would be about 50 to 100 times smarter than the human being. Now, people are already saying we've created a machine that's as smart as us. They're already using this in Google. They just haven't released it to the public because they're having problems with keeping it from saying racial things or things that are improper, politically incorrect. But people are already telling me, these are coders at ChatGPT and Google, Microsoft, were already telling me, oh, we've already reached AGI, this equivalent of intelligence to human beings. But we're now starting to work on the bigger things. And if they are right, they're honest, and I think they are, we are in for a most incredible 3 to 4 years as we give birth to intelligence that's greater than us. And if that happens, I don't know if it's going to be good or bad. It could be Terminator style.
Well, that's the issue. And this is one of the many millions of depictions of man and machine coming together. And of course, yes, appropriately enough, Terminator was a machine designed to kill and then designed to save, actually. I don't want to go too far down the path here because you and I are both qualified philosophers, and I don't want to lose the audience on this.
Of course.
But I'm going to take this opportunity to ask you whether you think it's possible to create authentic consciousness or merely the symptoms of consciousness.
So I'm not sure that consciousness is even important when we're dealing with super intelligence. We seem to think we're really special because we have this consciousness. But if you think about it, it's really what's practical, what gets the job done, that is really the measured result of what makes a difference in the universe. And an AI doesn't have to be conscious to change the world, to destroy us, as you saw in Terminator too. You know, one of my favorite movies as well. It doesn't need to be conscious. And the point of the story, though, is that we have this belief that if it's not like us, it won't be as strong or as powerful, as smart as us. But AI doesn't have to be like us. It could be far more powerful just being a simplistic macro giant calculator, you know, a couple miles wide square of servers. And that could be easily enough to not only take over the planet, but perhaps take over other parts of the solar system and galaxy. So I don't know if consciousness is really that important in terms of it having power.
That's I'm so tempted. We do another program called In Good Faith, and I might invite you to talk with Marcus Papadopoulos, Dr. Marcus Papadopoulos, on these issues. He's a fascinating fellow, and I so want to talk about the philosophy, but
me too, and I love it. I love it.
When I'm over there, we'll have dinner and we'll talk about all of this and whether it's possible. I have a theory about consciousness, and I have a theory about why I'm pretty sure. I'll tell you after the show, actually, briefly. But I'm pretty sure that we don't make consciousness, but we might make the circumstances for consciousness to live. But that's another story. Let's get back to, you mentioned something very interesting there, the space program. I'm very keen on exploration. I think human beings are designed to reach out, and the curiosity, when that ends, so does our wanderlust. Where do you stand on space programs and so forth?
Yeah, so I mean, the space industry is one of my, top 5 initiatives in California. I got to be honest, I've been a Star Trek fan and Star Wars fan forever. I have watched California lose business every single year to Texas and Florida until at this point, it's not even the largest state doing well, maybe in some things like satellites, but in terms of rocket launches, all that, we've lost. And I want to bring it all back. I believe we could just, we have a ton of empty land. California's huge. There's plenty enough open space to build entire space industries, an entire city dedicated to the space industry, and to make this kind of ground zero, our state, ground zero for the world, to have launches literally going up daily, which they almost are around the world now. So I would love to bring that all back to California, but it takes lessening environmental regulation, number one, and it just takes this idea of having a visionary response to the space industry. I want to get to the stars. I think our state should want to get to the stars. I think our country, I think our world should want to get to the stars.
Yeah, I'm the same as you. I'm very heavily involved in space project as well, and that's for another time. Donald Trump was talking about going back to the moon. He seems to be backing off a little bit on that now. It seems likely to me that the next boots on the moon will be Chinese.
Yeah, I mean, look, we have to do something about the Chinese. We can't let them completely start being better at AI, better at robots, better at getting in this, to the moon, the space industry for us. We need to just pick up the pace. This is kind of the problem with America, is that, and with some of the woke agenda that came in, it just kind of said, oh, everyone's average, everyone should be happy. Let's just hold hands and everything will be great. It's not going to be great. We're competing against people that work much more, I guess, harder than we do. If you look at their school systems from a young age. So we're going to have to break out whatever it is that we can and really start to work again to create enterprises. Now, thankfully, we did launch the AI industry, and that did come from California and America. But the Chinese have caught up very quickly, and they're starting to move forward in quantum computing in ways that we haven't moved forward yet. So, and quantum computing could be like the next AI boom. And so if we don't start doing these things, especially with the space industry, we're going to find ourselves falling behind. And because the way that technology moves these days, it moves so quickly. If you fall behind even a few months, that could be it. That could be the end of it. You may never catch up.
You mentioned woke quite a few times. One of my great annoyances is the intolerance dressed up as tolerance that the woke community put forward. I am appalled by the fact that children of single digits years are being taught about transsexuality and sexual identity. These are things that I think should come to you naturally at the time of puberty. Are you not causing yourself difficulty in the Democrats, which I tend, maybe incorrectly, tend to assume is very heavily committed to the woke agenda, that you're standing as a Democrat, but you're eschewing what I thought was essentially the Democrat agenda there, the DEI agenda?
Yeah, no, I'm absolutely, and this is clear on my website, not for DEI. I think it should be based on merit. I mean, I stand behind a lot of the typical, I guess, centric ideas where a lot of those questions don't even come up. I guess where I fall, though, because of my transhumanist linkings, the idea that I am, quite committed to using science and technology to improve the human body is where I actually fall in many ways more liberal, or I would say more libertarian than a lot of the other Democrats out there. In many ways, I'm more woke when it comes to what you want to do with your body, but I don't have this crazy agenda of teaching it to children or having, men and women's sports, for example. I totally am against that. I have 2 daughters. The last thing I want to do is, after my daughters are trying to get into college for swimming, have a guy beat them. I mean, these things. That said, I'm completely favorable when it comes to, if you want to change your body and become a transsexual, of course, do that. I think that's wonderful. But I think there has to be a limit on these kinds of boundaries. I think most transsexual people are actually quite upset with how the woke has almost hijacked their agenda. The transhuman agenda is far more dramatic than even the transsexual agenda. For example, we have friends that want to become fish, that want to put on an eye on the back of their head. I mean, this is sort of what transhumanism is. We want to merge our brains with machines one day. That sounds wild and crazy, but that's really what transhumanism is about. The thing is, we're not going to 6th graders and saying, this is what you need to do. What we're going to 6th graders and saying, look, do your algebra, do your geometry, read Huckleberry Finn, these kinds of things.
I have a friend, Craig McKinley, former British Member of Parliament. He had sepsis and he had his hands and feet amputated and replaced with very effective prosthetics. Before I knew him and before he went through his experience,
Sorry.
That's okay. These things happen. That's brilliant. It pretty much proves that you're not an AI.
Well, I saw this funny hair in my face, and I'm like, oh, my wife is going to kill me when she sees that. But
that is just fantastic. That's the beauty of live broadcasting.
It is midnight my time, so at least I have a little bit of an excuse. No, I was trying to get that hair out.
It's endearing. It's endearing. That's what I think. Well,
go on. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, what I was saying was mundane compared to that. Like my friend Craig McKinley, he's got prosthetic arms and legs, and I wouldn't have thought about that as being transhumanism, but I suppose in a sense it is, because he's got his life back thanks to machinery. And I don't know quite what the mechanics of how they work, probably through muscle inputs. I'm not sure, but it's given him his life back. I suppose, in a sense, it's like the Bionic Man, $6 Million Man, something I watched when I was a kid. There's an opportunity to give people their lives back through transhumanism.
Of course. So transhumanism, people give it such a bad rap, but let's look at what it really is about. It's if you're fighting a war in Afghanistan or Ukraine and all of a sudden your leg gets blown off, we're the people that put on a robotic leg so that you can walk again. Or if you're in a wheelchair, we're the people that give you a neural implant so you can get out of that wheelchair and actually run again and walk again. So transhumanism is one of the most humanitarian movements out there. And its number one goal is to try to get you and I to live longer. Its number one goal is actually to try to overcome aging. And so, I mean, when you think about it, like people are trying to do this or do that, but we're trying to not make it so that you don't die. I mean, what could be more humanitarian than that? And I think it has a bad rap because of the word trans and transgenderism and whatever, I mean, but let's be honest, it has nothing to do with that. Trans just means beyond and human means human. So we're trying to go beyond the human being.
Once again, a very, very interesting area. And I know that Elon Musk has been focusing on that. I want to finish on politics again. Your honest view of how Donald Trump is doing, and I put my cards on the table here again. I think that he's genuinely trying to get peace where others didn't bother. The European Union stands condemned for simply feeding the Ukraine war, while I think that Donald Trump's making a serious effort to resolve it. But what do you think of Trump's performance generally as president?
Absolutely. Look, I mean, his performance is undeniable. I'm not a fan of Trump. He said some bad things about me in the past, I understand. However, look, he's done a good job. He's done internationally. He's definitely going to be in the history books for that. I mean, he's solved a lot of crises, and I bet he's going to solve the Ukraine-Russian thing. I think eventually that's going to figure itself out as well through him. I mean, he's a master diplomat. I think the Democrats don't give him enough credit for that. I wish they did.
That said, he had made plenty of promises on fixing inflation and affordability. I see a lot of wealthy people getting a lot wealthier and the poor people getting poorer. So in that sense, I'm quite disappointed. But when it comes to, solving in the international world, I think he's done a very good job.
Yeah, he's certainly a maverick. He's certainly shaking things up. Question for you then: any ambitions to go to the White House yourself?
Yeah, of course, of course. Somebody always thinks that, but right now I'm really focused on California. I got to be honest, though, that we believe that, and a core part of my campaign is dealing with AI and automation. We think that's going to be transformative to the world. We are trying to start universal basic income in California as a way that the rest of the country will follow. And we honestly think the entire world is going to have to follow, because how many jobs can be lost before a massive depression happens when people can't find work and find enough employment? And the Social Security system doesn't really do enough for people. It just gives them the bare minimum. We have hundreds of thousands of homeless in California. So if we can create a structure in California, a basic income that's targeted, we're not giving basic income to really rich people. We're trying to give it to maybe people that make $150,000 and under. Maybe it'll be progressive. Maybe a billionaire will get a $10 check just as an honorary, we haven't forgot about you kind of thing. But we're really talking about the people that are paycheck to paycheck. When you go on the streets in California like I have, and you talk to them, you realize that these people, they get a flat tire, and that puts them 50% closer to being homeless. It's something that's become, and I know the same thing's happening in England. You guys have an incredible, a better system in terms of taking care of the poor. You have far less homeless, but it's not good enough. There's so much angst out there. I was, having just studied at Oxford, I can tell you, I felt the angst all around. But we have it even worse here in California. So we need to do something about that. And I think universal basic income is the best way forward in the age of AI and automation, where we're probably going to have a job apocalypse within 2 to 4 years' time. And of course, I'd love to take that to a national level. That's probably going to be something, maybe the saving grace of many democratic countries around the world here in the next decade's time.
Last word to you on this one. Why should people vote for you? If you have to give, you can have a 1 minute party political broadcast for
let me tell you,
Zoltan.
A Democrat is going to win the California gubernatorial election. I'm the most right of those on the left. So if I fit that for you, if you want a centric person who is still a Democrat and still has that possibility of winning, I'm your person. I'm going to restore California, not just the fiscal responsibility it needs, but also just the rationality. Forget the progressive woke stuff. I'm just going to bring it so that we can all earn some money, have a good living, raise our family, and live in the beautiful nature of the Golden State.
Nicely done. That's really impressive. And that was probably about 48 seconds. I'll time it later. Thanks so much indeed. It's been a real pleasure to talk with you. And we must do this again. We must indulge ourselves with philosophy at some point.
I would love to do that. It would be fun.
Where can people find out more about your campaign?
Sure. My campaign website is Zoltqn Istvan 2026.com. And I'm all over social media. So just Google Zoltqn Istvan and you'll find me hopefully everywhere.
That is great. It's really good to speak with you. That is Zoltqn Istvan. If you are a voter, do have your say. Go to at Lembit Öpik on X, or you can please like and subscribe to Unprecedented TV on YouTube as well. What an interesting fellow, and hopefully he'll be a friend to the station. And please, you be a friend too. If you like what you said, please, if you like what you saw, then please do repost it. Feel free. I'm never going to complain about you breaching the copyright. The more people see us, the better. That was Zoltqn Istvan, possibly the next governor of California, and who knows, perhaps a future president of the United States of America too. I'm Lembit Öpik. This is Unprecedented TV, and we try to bring you the most interesting people. I think we've just done that. Have a good day.
Immediate ceasefire in Gaza, the return of the sausages.